Расскажите о том, как вы пришли к православию.
I was raised Protestant Christian. I was raised Southern Baptist. Um, I was raised in a very pious Christian family, as far as Southern Baptists go. I grew up. I became not very pleased with the church life that I had. I wandered astray, I guess I would say, into other kinds of religious thoughts, Eastern religions, just various things like that. And then at some point, God led me to, I suppose I would have to say, He led me to pick up a certain book. I picked up a book called The Way of a Pilgrim, and I read through it, and I thought, what in the world is this, And then I happened to read some other books along the same line by an Orthodox priest monk in this country, Father Seraphim Rose. Not anything particular about him, just I had some of his books someone had given me, and he spoke about the Orthodox Church, and I thought, I had never heard of this. How is this that I am an educated, an adult American, and I've never even heard of the Orthodox Church? And so I looked in the phone book. At that time I was living in California, about an hour north of San Francisco. And I looked for an Orthodox church. And when I looked in the phone book, there was one mile this way and one mile that way. And I called the first one and no one answered. And I called the other one and the priest answered. And he said, well, come over. And I went over and started talking. And little by little, I was just fascinated. The first service I went to was a pre-sanctified liturgy. It was in Slavonic, interestingly enough. And I just felt like I stepped into another heavenly world. I mean, to be honest, it was just unlike anything I'd ever experienced. Full of heart. I had come across many kind of Christ, many kind of ideas of who Christ is in my life. But in the Orthodox Church, I met the true Christ of love and mercy. And my heart was just converted completely. My family and I were baptized. We had 2 children at the time. The day we were baptized was on the Feast of Pokrov, old calendar. And the service was in Slavonic and the homily was in Russian. And so we didn't even know what was going on, really. But not too long after that, the parish becomes more and more full of converts and Americans, and so that's really how we became Orthodox. First we read about it and I thought, this sounds interesting. But then whenever I actually went to the church, that made a big difference. It was like walking into really kind of a heavenly experience, and I think probably that first service converted me to Orthodoxy. And then after that it was just learning, kind of, doing the book studies and meeting with the priest and going through the catechism, that kind of thing. And eventually we were baptized, and after some years I went to seminary, became a priest, and now my family is Orthodox. I have children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren. They all live here. They're all part of the church. That's my story in brief, I suppose I would say.
So that was the Russian church that you went first?
The church that we became Orthodox in Santa Rosa, California, was full of very elderly Russian immigrants who had fled from the Russian Revolution. Very aristocratic, very wonderful people who were full of memories and piety, and just unlike anything we'd experienced. And yeah, they welcomed us. I mean, that was a big part of it. They welcomed us, and they were happy to give us their tradition, to help us to understand. So yeah, it was at that point mostly a Russian parish. Now that parish in Santa Rosa is a very large, multicultural parish full of every kind of ethnic group that you can imagine, because it's been I don't know, that was in the early 1980s that we first went to that church, and now it's 2020.
Мгм. Вы всегда одеваетесь как священник, подрясник, крест. Вот когда вы ходите, например, в магазин, как люди реагируют на это?
And certainly they do respond, first I would say. And there's been very positive responses and a few, but not many negative responses. I would say probably every time I go into a public place, somehow someone approaches me about something. Maybe they have a question. Maybe they just have a need. Maybe they just want to come up and say, would you say a prayer or get a blessing, even if they're not Orthodox, you know. Somehow they're attracted to the fact that I'm dressed as an Orthodox priest. Those are the kind of reactions that I get. When we first moved to this town where we are, it's a small community. We did our work outside. We lived closer to town. We had a small hay field. We picked up hay. I was dressed like a priest even then. So people got to know that something different was going on. You know, there was this person in town who wasn't here before. And initially people were a little bit nervous or skeptical or maybe put off. But after you live here for a long time, people get to know you. That's how small of a town it is. You know, there's, I don't know, maybe 8 or 10 or 12,000 people in Delta. I'm not sure how many. So now when we go into the grocery stores, they all know me. Whenever we're going to ring the bells for Pascha, we call the police department and tell them we're going to ring the bells at midnight, you know, and they all know us. So over time they get used to us and they accept us. Not that they all want to become Orthodox, but they see that we are not fearful. They see that we are Christian. For a time I wrote articles for the newspaper. They were well received by the population. So most of the responses, I would say, have been on the positive level. And I'd say almost every time I go into public, even if it's going into the Burger King hamburger place, you know, the last time I happened to go into a hamburger restaurant, you know, which was probably, I don't know, a year or two ago, some young girl comes up, young woman, and you can see that she's got difficulty, and so people just come up and they want to talk and they want you to help them somehow. So most of the responses are favorable, but I think it's because they've gotten used to us being here and they see that we're Christian, you know. They see that we're not threatening. I think that's mostly it. And I think it's one of our biggest ways here in this country of evangelizing people. Otherwise, they don't know that there's any difference. And I'm not uncommon. It's not unusual for a priest in this country to go around with a cassock. I know all the priests in Colorado. They all go around in their cassocks and their crosses. When they go to the grocery store, they're dressed as a priest. When they go to the doctor, when they go to the dentist, when they go almost anywhere, they take their kids to school. And so people want to know what's going on, and it would lead people to say, what is this, you know? Tell me why you're dressed this way. Or now people will often come up and say, are you Orthodox? Are you this? Are you that? You know, and they want to know more about it.